How long does it take to habituate to tinnitus? The length of time it takes varies greatly by the individual. For some it can take a few weeks, for others it can take over a year. In this video, I'll explain how you can habituate to your tinnitus as quickly as possible. This is Pure Tinnitus. Hey, my name is Dr. Ben Thompson. I'm an audiologist and tinnitus specialist in California. Let's talk about habituation. Reducing the actual tinnitus perception or the loudness of tinnitus is not as important as reducing and working on the negative emotional reactions to the tinnitus. One of the most commonly used methods for tinnitus therapy is called tinnitus retraining therapy. It's something that I was trained very specifically on, and it's one of the modalities that I use. With the right guidance and your commitment in tinnitus retraining therapy, 80% of patients can habituate to the emotional reactions of their tinnitus within 12 months. So for most people, that habituation period is less than 1 year if they're putting in the work and they know exactly how to do it. If you're new to this channel, press that red subscribe button so you can get our new tinnitus video coming out every single week where we focus on all things tinnitus. We're going to use what's called the neurophysiological model to describe how there's two feedback loops inside your body that impact tinnitus. The upper feedback loop involves the auditory perception of tinnitus coming from your auditory brain and your mental concentration or focus about that perception. The upper feedback loop is dominant in the acute stage of tinnitus, which typically is in the first weeks to months. The lower feedback loop involves the limbic system, the emotional brain, and the autonomic nervous system. The limbic system helps regulate your fight or flight response. If you're bothered by tinnitus, then typically that means your limbic system and that response is on high alert. The autonomic nervous system helps regulate our homeostasis in our body. If tinnitus is bothering you, it's likely that your autonomic nervous system is intensified, and that creates an increased heart rate, increase in breathing, and some other physiological responses in your body that make it hard to calm down and let tinnitus become less of a problem. That lower feedback loop is most commonly dominant for chronic tinnitus when you've had it for months to years and it's been a bothersome problem in your life. So that negative reaction to tinnitus comes from a few places, as we mentioned. It comes from the limbic system in the emotional centers of our brain, and it comes from the autonomic nervous system, which increases our body's physiological response to tinnitus. So that covers some of the basics of the neurophysiological model. I made a full video about tinnitus retraining therapy, which you can find below. We also have a lot of other resources on our channel here, so check those out. So there's a few reasons why someone like yourself could have a negative response to the tinnitus. Number one could be what's called negative counseling. Some common examples of negative counseling are when you go to your primary doctor or an ENT doctor and they say, there's nothing that can be done about your tinnitus, you're just gonna have to learn how to live with it. When you're told that kind of harsh response, it only increases the intensity of the feedback loop. It doesn't give you hope that things are gonna change. It makes your tinnitus louder and it makes your emotional reaction to it stronger. Another reason why you could have a negative reaction to tinnitus is because there was some pre-existing emotional response in your body that tinnitus spiked the pre-existing condition that may involve anxiety, depression, chronic fear or worrying, or stress. So habituation occurs when the upper feedback loop and the lower feedback loop are both ended. What ending that feedback loop means is that you discontinue this constant back and forth and intensification between the factors of each feedback loop. So when you fully understand what's happening in the upper feedback loop and the lower feedback loop, then you can take some direct action and take some control back about how the tinnitus affects your experience. For the upper feedback loop, I'll share one tip that you can do, which is try not to mentally hyper-focus about your tinnitus. So a common way for this to come through is that John Smith has ringing in the ears and he spends the next 2 weeks spending many hours a day researching on the internet about what he can do about his tinnitus. That I would categorize as hyper-mental focusing about tinnitus. In the upper feedback loop, that only intensifies the tinnitus. It makes it louder, which causes John Smith to have more hyper-focusing because he might feel like if he doesn't figure this out now, it's only gonna get worse. And that creates this heightened sense of stress, anxiety, and that does not help stop the feedback loop. To directly impact the lower feedback loop, This is part of the autonomic nervous system. Specifically, we want to target and welcome the parasympathetic nervous system. This is part of your nervous system that comes out through deep relaxation, through peaceful practices. This could be found through mind-body practices like guided breathing, guided meditation, yoga, taking a warm bath, having a ritual or a practice every night before you go to sleep, something that grounds you, that calms you down, that puts you in a good headspace and relaxes you into your body. That's going to all activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's one way to have some direct control and to get into that feedback loop in the lower system. There are techniques that work better for some people and not for others. We're all individuals, so what I encourage you to do is to really do your homework, look at what is out there. We have the upper feedback loop and the lower feedback loop. You can try some techniques to work on either of these systems, and if you put in the time, if you're motivated, and if you have the right guidance, you will see progress with your tinnitus related to the quality of life you have and the emotional reactions or the stress you have from the tinnitus. So when you can limit your hyper-focusing on the tinnitus in the upper feedback loop, and when you can increase the parasympathetic nervous system response in your lower feedback loop, then habituation is already happening. That habituation to the sound of tinnitus occurs naturally. You cannot force habituation. Remember that. There's no way to push through to habituate to your tinnitus. It only happens when you ease into it by easing into the upper system and easing into the lower system. That is the key for you to habituate to the negative emotional reaction of your tinnitus over time. Remember, this can take a period between weeks, months, or sometimes over a year. So please be patient, keep at it, have a dedicated practice, and have some guidance, because with the right guidance, then you know you're going to get to the goals you want to be at. Here at Pure Tinnitus, we have a lot of free resources on these videos. My name is Dr. Ben Thompson. I have a website below, puretinnitus.com. You can check that out. I do offer one-on-one therapy sessions. You can find the link to our website and other resources in the info below. If you learned anything from this video, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, YouTube does not recommend our video to anyone else. Press that red subscribe button so you can stay updated with our new tinnitus education video coming out every single week, and press that notification bell, because if you don't, YouTube doesn't let you know when our new video comes out. Remember to take your tinnitus journey one step at a time.